The Honourable Amy Adams.
Mr Chairman, thank you. I will take a call this evening on the Human Rights Amendment Bill and address a number of the issues that I've heard discussed around the House this evening. Firstly, it's not entirely clear to me that Mr Shearer has just resumed his seat and Mr Henare, I think it was earlier in the debate, are aware of the government SOP, which I'll talk to in a minute, which makes it very clear that far from disestablishing any positions, they are absolutely being maintained in name and in function. So what I want us to take the House through is because the point of the bill was to address the fact that at the moment the structure of the Commission limits the ability of the Commission to act as effectively as it could. So at the moment the Commission can only act with 3 full-time members and a number of part-time members. And it might interest the House to know that actually at the moment the Commission has the equivalent of 4.7 commissioners. So we have 3 full-time and a number of part-time commissioners that make up 4.7 full-time slots if you took them out to a full-time equivalent. Now, what we've found in talking with the Commission is that actually for those part-time commissioners, while they have done some excellent work, it has really impinged upon their ability to take full part in the life of the Commission as what they are first and foremost, which is human rights commissioners. So this change of the structure of the Commission is an important one and one that the Commission supports, which is to say that actually to have 4 or 5 full-time commissioners absolutely preserves the resourcing of the Commission, and that's a point I want to make very clearly. We're not reducing the total number of commissioners. 4 to 5 full-time commissioners is the same as is available at the moment and slightly more if needed, but it means that each one of those commissioners is a full-time human rights commissioner and is not finding that they're losing a large part of their working day at administrative matters. And I've spent a number of my working years on part-time roles, and I can tell you when you're in a part-time role, you spend a huge amount of your time doing the administrative meetings that everyone has to do and leaves you very little to do your job. And that's certainly what our part-time commissioners were finding. So by making them all full-time commissioners, we expect and the Commission expects that they will be far more able to take active role in the life of the Commission. Mr Speaker, I want to come back to this point around this alleged disestablishment of the roles, and I want to read what the bill said initially, which made it very clear that there must be a commissioner other than the Chief Commissioner who will lead the work of the Commission in respect of disability rights, which is of course the new Commissioner position, equal employment opportunities, including pay equity, and race relations. All the way through, the bill has been extremely clear that there has to be a full-time commissioner appointed to lead the work in each of those roles. Now, talking with my colleagues in the Māori Party, they felt very strongly that the title itself had to be provided in statute. And look, I was very open to that, so we've put the SOP up that makes it clear that after each of those lines, it now goes on to say the Disability Rights Commissioner, the Equal Employment Opportunities Commissioner, the Race Relations Commissioner. The roles were always in the legislation. The roles have never been disestablished, and now with the SOP we are making it very clear that the title also remains. Now, if the title gives this House some comfort, then that's wonderful. I'm very happy to support that. The roles were always there. They were there in substance, and they remain there. So to stand in this House and suggest that the roles are being disestablished is completely misleading and I would say somewhat disingenuous. From the day this bill has been introduced, it has been absolutely clear in statute that there would always be a requirement for commissioners leading each one of those pieces of work. And in fact, as I've said now, we've made it very clear that the titles are also not being removed, and I would argue that there was no requirement that they ever would be. But as I said, if it gives the House some comfort, we're very happy to do that. The other allegation that's been made is one that somehow the bill removes the independence of the Chief Commissioner. And again, I dispute that. The bill makes it very clear that the Commissioner has the right to determine, the Chief Commissioner has the right to determine other priority areas. And one of the things I like about the structure of this bill is while we have created the new Disability Rights Commissioner, we have protected the statutory roles of the Equal Employment Opportunities Commissioner and the Race Relations Commissioner. We've also made it very clear and provided the capability for the Chief Commissioner to identify other priority areas. Now, human rights are not a static beast. We are living in a period of incredible change with the advent of the digital economy, and the way we live our lives is changing, and it is absolutely clear to me that in the period that this legislation is current, there will be needs to have human rights commissioners focused on other pieces of work. And we wanted to make sure that the Chief Commissioner absolutely had the capability and the legislative scope to do that. Now, under the bill, Mr Chairman,
Honourable Amy Adams.
under the bill, the Chief Commissioner has the absolute right to determine any of those other priority areas. Now, yes, there's an obligation to consult with the other commissioners, as there's an obligation to consult with the Minister. But the Minister does not control it, the Minister does not dictate it, the Minister cannot veto it. You would expect any Chief Commissioner working under the responsible Minister to at least advise and seek the views of the government. Now, that Chief Commissioner could ignore them if he or she chooses, and that is very clear in the bill. It is only an obligation to consult, and I would suggest that to not do that would be absolutely poor practice, and I wouldn't think anyone would support that. But it cannot be said that somehow the government has the control or that independence is in any way being diminished. Mr Chairman, the last comment I wanted to pick up on was again Mr Shearer's suggestion that somehow this bill was being looked down on by the international community and we were being criticised or it would degrade us. In actual fact, I was at the UN Human Rights Commission in Geneva this year, and they were very clear. In fact, they encouraged the government to pass this bill without delay. So I would just say to the Labour Party who are opposing it, that the Human Rights Commission, the Human Rights Council of the UN, urge the government to pass this legislation without delay. That's what we are doing, and I think the Labour Party has to look at themselves to ask themselves why it is they're opposing legislation that the UN Human Rights Committee has urged this government to pass without delay, that the Human Rights Commission are anxious to get underway with, that creates the new role of the Disability Commissioners, that provides the scope and capability for the Chief Commissioner to develop other priority areas, and ensures that they have the full resourcing to do that. Mr Speaker, it's an excellent bill. I look forward to this House passing it.
I call Dennis